I wonder if anyone's gonna tune into this video and be like, oh, she's talking about this again? Come on. Sorry. Hi, today I am reviewing the film version of In the Heart of the Sea. This is the last of 3 movies that I wanted to see that came out last year. This is the movie directed by Ron Howard and starring Chris Hemsworth that is based on Nathaniel Philbrick's book, which I reviewed 2 years ago. It's one of my first videos about the sinking of the whale ship Essex and the trials of its survivors, and how all those things became an inspiration for Herman Melville in writing Moby-Dick. Okay, so I am of 2 minds about this movie, because as a movie, I thought it was pretty good. What happened to the Essex is a great story, and it very easily lends itself to film. I thought the tense relationship between First Mate Owen Chase and Captain Pollard was very well portrayed. I think the performances overall were pretty good. I think they could have used Cillian Murphy more. When I heard he was going to be in the movie, I was excited because he's a really good actor, and he always brings something special to every role he plays. Compared to what I was hoping for, he ended up with a pretty small part. What he did with it was good, of course, he didn't disappoint, but it was a smaller amount of screen time than I would have preferred. But aside from that, I didn't really have any complaints, and I gotta give them props. They managed to make the whaling stuff seem actually interesting, and don't tell anyone, but I thought it was cool to see the stuff that I had laboriously read about in Moby-Dick being portrayed on the screen, all of the little whaling details. I had some nerdy moments, I admit. There were things that I wasn't crazy about. The movement of the camera was a little too chaotic sometimes. I just don't really care for that kind of filming. And the accents were all over the place. I can't say I blame them for having trouble getting the accent right, because what is the accent for an 1820s Nantucketer? I have no idea. I will say, though, that the most distracting accent was Chris Hemsworth, because he's an Australian guy trying to figure out that balance of English and American and Boston, and I think he struggled, and my biggest criticism of it is the use of the frame story mechanism. They've got Thomas Nickerson telling Herman Melville the story, and they cut to a flashback, and there are things that are shown that he couldn't possibly have any knowledge of because he wasn't there. And plus it's confusing, because you could think that Thomas Nickerson young is being played by Chris Hemsworth, but it's actually jumped from Nickerson to Owen Chase, and it's just like, that was kind of messy. But anyway, my parents liked it, and I guess I liked it. The problem is that the whole time I was watching, I couldn't turn off that part of my brain that was constantly comparing what I was seeing to what I had read about in Nathaniel Philbrick's book, because I really liked the book, and I managed to retain a lot of the information. I don't always retain everything that I read in a nonfiction book, but I managed to retain an awful lot of the facts for this, and so the whole time I was just like, I don't remember it being quite like that. Are they gonna not show that thing that happened? As an adaptation, this movie was kinda, I have 2 beefs with it mainly, although I could say 2.5, but the half is just the stuff with Melville interviewing Nickerson. I don't know, it just rubbed me the wrong way, because I was like, I don't think this is the way it happened. And I know that the Essex was part of his inspiration for Moby-Dick, but I don't think that it was the whole thing. But besides that, so the Essex tragedy has 2 components that have made it a story crazy and horrifying enough that people still talk about it today. The first is the whale seeming to deliberately attack the whale ship, which was an unprecedented thing. And the second, spoiler alert, this might be spoiler stuff, sorry. The second is the survivors having to resort to cannibalism in order to stay alive. And so my 2 main beefs with the movie have to do with these 2 things. As far as the first goes, there was so much overuse of the whale. If I remember these things correctly, and I might not, the whale that hit the Essex wasn't described as a white whale, was it? That was Melville's own detail that he added to Moby-Dick. And I think that what happened is that the whale hit the Essex, and then hit it again, and then it sank. And then later a different whale hit one of the stranded whaleboats. That happening, a whale attacking a ship, was unheard of. That's why when the survivors came back to Nantucket, nobody believed them. But according to the way the movie plays it out, this one enormous white whale comes after them again and again and again and again and again. They took what was fact and overly dramatized or romanticized or something to make it fantastic, so that it's completely unbelievable and unrealistic. I felt like it undermined the real story and made it so that nobody who sees this movie could possibly believe that this really happened. And the other thing is that there's not enough cannibalism. And, oh my goodness, I don't even want to talk about this because you're going to think that I'm so weird, but I have a thing, a fascination for true stories about cannibalism. Not just cannibalism for the heck of it, okay, but survival cannibalism. The tragic disaster that leads up to it, how the survivors are forced to make the decision, how they carry it out, how they deal with the psychological after effects, how they end up eventually getting rescued, if they get rescued. It was from a side discussion on survival cannibalism in an ethics class that I heard about this story. It's a big deal in the book. Philbrick spends a lot of time on it because it's a huge part of the horror that dogged the survivors to the end of their days. The fact that two groups of survivors completely separate of each other had to resort to eating their own dead shipmates, especially in the case of Captain Pollard eating his own relative. But in this movie, they give it about 5 minutes total. They handle it very delicately, I guess tastefully. Oh no, that's a bad pun. They don't really dwell on specifics, and I'm not saying that I wanted it to be gory. I definitely did not. I don't want to see them chopping up limbs and blood getting everywhere and men tearing into human flesh. That would be disgusting. But I felt like the way it ended up, it was over minimalized and almost whitewashed. So I end up coming away with the familiar feeling that I liked the book better, but that's not to say that the movie was necessarily bad. If I hadn't read the book, I probably would have enjoyed the movie just fine. It's just, I had expectations, and the movie didn't necessarily meet them. But if you don't have those expectations, you might be happy enough. I think my parents enjoyed it, and I enjoyed it up to a certain point. So that's my review of In the Heart of the Sea. I'm not sure how many people saw this movie, but if you saw it and you have some thoughts on it, go ahead and share them. And as usual, thanks for watching. Bye!